Our guest this morning, who is also bespectacled, is from the county of Nyeri. She is a County Executive Committee member for Trade, Tourism and Cooperatives in Nyeri. She also holds several other positions. She is the Trade Caucus Chairperson for the Central Kenya Economic Bloc that brings together several counties in Central Kenya. And nationally, she is the National Chairperson of the County Trade CECs Forum that brings all the CECs from the 47 counties in charge of trade together. She chairs the forum. Hey, big person. Diana Kendi Tarichia. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you in the show. Welcome to the hot seat of the Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Early morning for you, but it's warm. This is not like Nyeri.
Not.
It's good temperatures, right?
Very good temperatures.
Yeah. Diana, you've worked in devolution. Well, when we look you up, you've worked in devolution since devolution was devolved.
Right.
Yeah. You previously worked in Machakos County before you went to Nyeri County. What were you doing in Machakos?
Thanks, Eric. In Machakos County, I started off as a deputy director for county image in the office of the governor. And I was there for 2 years. Then I moved on to be director for county image still. So it was really a promotion. Mm-hmm. Then I was moved to the Department of Trade. My background is in international business administration. So I was happy to also serve as director for trade and economic planning in Machakos County, mm-hmm. which I continued to do until 2017 when I moved to Nyeri County government.
And you went straight to being a minister in Nyeri?
Yes, I did.
Hey, okay. How old were you when you first started working in Machakos?
I was 25. Yes.
Say that again.
25.
Ndu may have missed it.
I was 25, yeah. I was director at 25, yeah.
Wow.
You know, there are several things that we're hearing here. Number one, it's young woman being appointed to a senior position in a new structure of government. You are director, you are assistant director in charge of county image. What is that, by the way? What's county image?
County image in Machakos was designed under the office of the governor to take care of special programs of the county government. And a county image, that is the directorate that was actually charged with things like clearing the highways that employs. You see what we have with Kazi Mtaani now? Machakos had that in 2013, mm-hmm. hiring people from the close by localities to clean the highways and do beautification. County image was also the directorate in the office of the governor that was charged with branding. It was also charged with designing the Machakos People's Park. Yeah. So I'm very proud of that project that I saw begin and come to completion during my tenure as director for county image.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what's the job of the Trade CEC when you moved over into Nyeri County? What is the mandate?
Well, the general mandate of a CEC, so like what we know in the national government, there is the president, that is the structure. There's the president, then there's the cabinet secretaries, and there's the permanent secretaries. The equivalent in county governments is there's the governor, there's the CECs, which is the county executive members, then there's the chief officers. So effectively, what I do at the county government of Nyeri is what a cabinet secretary does at the national cabinet, which is largely to advise the cabinet on matters concerning the docket, in my case, trade, tourism, culture, and cooperative development. So I am an advisor to the governor. We originate legislation that then goes to public participation and through the county assembly. We are also in charge of budgeting, controls, directing, staffing, the usual sort of management roles in the county government.
Okay, so I mean, just taking Nyeri County then as an example, what are you advising on right now? There's so many things that seem to be up in the air in terms of trade, and if we're just going to look specifically at trade, I know that your docket is larger than that, but if we look specifically at trade, which many have said is then a driver, for county income or county revenue, then what are some of the specifics that we are looking at? We've just come off reading a story about avocado and what it can mean for traders in the country. So what projects right now are receiving attention and funding from county in terms of trade?
Thanks. The trade, what is devolved, because there are roles that fall within the national government, there are roles that fall with the county government. Domestic trade is the arm of trade that is actually devolved to the county government. But you know, the two levels of government work in collaboration and cooperation. So every county government, and I'm saying this because I also represent all the other counties as their chairperson, they have their own focus areas when it comes to trade based on their competitive comparative advantage. For us in Nyeri County, traditionally we've been an agriculture-based economy. So we have focused on agriculture, specifically coffee, tea, and dairy. If you are just looking at the news and if you've been following the county, you have seen the county has done a lot, especially in the area of agriculture, to be able to, we have what we called a liming program. So what we noticed is that, especially in the coffee sector, what would happen is all these fertilizers would be dispatched from the national government and then they'd come to NCPBA and then people would just apply, everyone would apply the same kind of fertilizer to their coffee, but the quality of their soils is different. So we started with soil testing to say, okay, what is the problem with our soils? How come we are now getting an average of 2 kgs per coffee bush when we could be at 20?
All right.
So we realized it's the quality of our soil. So the next thing, the county government invested in buying a lot of lime to issue to the coffee farmers through the coffee cooperatives, so that to improve on that. And now we did that in 2018. Now, the statistics do tell us that the average production per coffee bush is 5 kgs per tree. We are up more than 100%. So these are the kind of things that we are trying to do. We are lucky that, the exporters are lucky that there has been gains in foreign currency. So when we started out, the average amount of money that a coffee farmer would get from their cooperative after they sell their coffee would be 50, 60, 70, at best 80 shillings per kg. Right now, if you look at the numbers, every coffee factory is paying northward of 100 shillings per kg. And this is what we are really looking at. We are really looking at the indicators to tell us, are the things that we are doing giving us the outcomes that we are looking for? The other thing that we've done in trade, Nyeri is big on trade, by the way. And the county government, over time, all of these years, under His Excellency Mutahi Kahiga, has invested a lot in public markets. So you will see, currently we have slightly less than 10,000 people, the mamambogas, the people who sell in markets. Because as I started by saying, we are a largely agriculture-based economy. So we have created markets where these people can have decent trading environments, where if you're driving to Nanyuki or just going by the highway, you would find a proper structured market that you can buy from. And it also gives us then a structured way of collecting revenue, because I know we are going there. Because what the county does not charge taxes by law. What the county charges is fees, rates. So basically, you're mainly charging for things that you're providing services for. So now we are providing you a good trading environment. We are making your place comfortable for the customer to come to you. Then it also gives us now a structured place that we can come and put a revenue officer to be able to collect revenue from you. So if you're making money, it is reasonable for your government to say, a little bit of that money that you're making, you need to contribute to revenue base. Yeah.
Your docket is a fairly big docket.
Yes.
Trade, cooperatives, culture, tourism.
Yes.
Huge.
Yes.
Then you throw in agriculture.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as we listen to the stories from the 47 counties that we have in this country, Eric just intimated that own source revenue collection is something that is a bit of a bother. The conversation one doesn't hear, the bother bit we get to hear, but the thing we don't hear of, counties telling us what their potential is in terms of the Kenya shillings that they anticipate. Counties tell us of what they collect, but we do not know what factor this collection is of the potential. Now, Nyeri's potential, okay, as a tourism destination, culture, trade you've mentioned, as a hub in that particular region. What would you say, roughly speaking, is the financial potential of Nyeri? Because the dockers that you've mentioned more or less encapsulates the money-making sector that Nyeri has.
Correct.
Yes.
We have had numbers that have been suggested, especially when His Excellency the Governor goes to Senate and he's always asked about this revenue question. And we've had, I think there was a study that was done that talked of our potential being 2 billion shillings. Our target
Per month or per year?
per year. What our target has been as a county government in Nyeri has been 1 billion. So far, we have not been able to achieve that target, but we have, year on year, we have gone gaining, and we are coming closer to that target than we were when we started. Yeah.
You see why I ask? If one, you more or less answered it in part. When you have a target and you're not reaching it, then you then ask that very fundamental question, what is it that we need to do not to get there? We had your deputy governor here, and one of the things that she not only talked about but demonstrated is how robust the coffee sector is, because we have been consumers of the finished product of some of the coffee that you produce in Nyeri. Delightful stuff.
Yes.
Now, if you were talking of culture and tourism, what is it that Nyeri has that very few other counties in this country have, and that have become a constant attraction?
Oh my goodness, I'm very glad you asked me that question. The thing is, and this is what I learned, it is good that I mention here, Nyeri is not actually my home county. I'm part of the 30% that is required to come from the non-dominant tribe. The thing is, for a long time, Nyeri has been on the traditional tourist map when the tourists do the circuit around the country, but they have not been out to these places. I'll give you an example of the Aberdare Park. I don't know if you have been there. I see you smiling. I don't know if you've been to Zaina Falls.
I have been to the Aberdares, yes.
Yes, it is a huge, huge fall. And there's so many...
Zaina Falls.
Zaina Falls, yes. It is a beautiful place. Quite a number of people come to camp out there. We have Ndoboche Falls in Madeira. If you talk about the Kikuyu culture, it's very, it's one of the richest cultures that you will find in Africa. And it is very, very unique. One thing that is... other than the food and, Kikuyu is also very, very rich in music, and you will find a lot of that. And we have a lot of cultural villages. We've helped actually our communities set up. So you can go to Nyeri today, you go to something like Kigera Cultural Village, and you will be able to learn a lot about the culture of Nyeri. The other thing that you will find to be very, very delightful about Nyeri is the mountain, of course, Mount Kenya. And which reminds me, recently we had a training for mountain climbers and porters that we are trying to certify them to be able to take visitors like yourselves up the mountain. I don't know if any of you has had a chance to...
3 times.
You have?
Guy.
Oh my God, congratulations.
3 times.
I thought it was big stuff until someone came here and told us that climbed Mount Kenya 200 times.
There's a guy from Nyeri who just climbed Everest.
He was
the
here.
guy.
That's the guy.
Oh, he's the guy.
Yes.
Well,
We were talking about it and Eric mentioned
it's hard to compete
and
with
then
that
when
one.
you mentioned 200 times, I realized I hadn't climbed the mountain at all.
But he lives near the mountain. He climbs with the rest of the guys around there. So you've done well. You've done very, very well.
Diana, did you just say that Kikuyu food is one of the tourist attractions?
Yes. Not the one that Mashakura, not Mashakura. There is the mokimos and there is the traditional food. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Eric, focus on variety.
It's variety.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So potential, you've said, you've been told, you've heard the figures of 2 billion shillings. Your target has been 1 billion shillings.
Yes.
Why is your target not this potential? Is it that you don't agree that the potential of Nyeri County is 2 billion?
Currently, as we are set up now, you see the thing, it's a, yes, we need to raise our own revenue, but we cannot do that to the detriment of our people. So you could overtax people to the point that their businesses cannot survive. For example, when we look at our valuation role for land, what you pay for having a plot, say in town, or the valuation role suggests that it is outdated, we could charge more. But now and we had quite a bit of noise around this with our citizens, because they were feeling like, I have a plot that probably I inherited or is, owned by the family. And then now you want me to pay you for this plot that is not even, I'm not doing any economic activity on it. And then you want me to pay you perhaps 15,000, 20,000 shillings per year. I cannot afford this. Remember, we are also now recovering from COVID. So there was a lot of waivers that we had to give to just keep our businesses alive. Because we have to grow the businesses before we can start overly, charging them.
Yeah.
So there is that balance of how much do we charge in levies and rates versus, or what can we charge and people can comfortably pay. Because what we've also realized is you could charge so much, it becomes very difficult for people to comply. Because they can't afford to comply.
But then
the cost of compliance is high.
I actually agree with you, but maybe Eric didn't say it, but my reading of what Eric was getting at was, you already have attractions.
Yes.
What then do you do to ensure that more people enjoy this attraction? Forget taxing the living daylights out of your people. No. Just getting more people to come. Okay, you have the Aberdares. There's a national park. There's the Rhino Ark. Then take that compared with the Mara.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
That county lives off that Mara. The Mara doesn't have a mountain. The Mara doesn't have anything that you find in that region of Nyeri. And yet, the Mara gets its fair share of business because of what is done to add value to it. My question, and which is really what I was getting at, is what you already have that already brings people, what do you add to it?
Agreed. So we have done quite a bit of, like I started by saying, and maybe I didn't say it very clearly, is that we have amped up our marketing of these tourist attractions. The thing, though, the difference between probably the Mara and the Aberdare is that the Mara is considered a community reserve. So the revenue that goes to the Mara goes to the county government. As it is in the current setup in Nyeri, the Aberdare and the Mount Kenya forest, as much as the Nyeri, they are under the national government because they are classified as national parks. And one of the strategic importance of the Aberdare is not really, well, there is the park, there is the animals, there is the revenue we get from it, but more so it is protected because it is one of the main water towers for this country. So it is a resource of, it's a strategic resource.
Yes.
So the revenue that goes to the Aberdare, there's a lot of visitors we get in the Aberdare. The interesting thing I have observed, a lot of the visitors we get to the Aberdare, other than the Kenyans, we have seen a surge in domestic tourism in the past 2 years. But we have also seen huge numbers from Asia, the Chinese. A lot of them come to the Aberdare. And it's one of those attractions that they are really into. So to really answer your question, for the parks, as it is, they are still under the national government and the revenue goes to the Kenya Wildlife Service and the Kenya Forest Service. However, we're in conversation with the national government to say the county government does provide services to enable this park keep running. For example, we enable the roads that go by there, right? We have the water provider, which is under the county government. We collect your garbage. We deal with your garbage. How do we have a revenue share model with you for the amount of money that you collect from these parks?
What do you do to encourage investors?
We do a couple of things. One of the things that we do, and I would urge everyone who's listening and yourself to probably, when you have some time, to check our investment profile. There's an investment profile that is available on our county website. And what we do is, one of the things is we can have a discussion with the investor to say, okay, you want to set up here. What is it that you require? Do you need for us to waive for you probably building plan charges? That does not mean that we will not approve your building plans. It just means that we will not charge you for it. Right? We are willing to work with the investor, especially if it's an investor who's not very conversant with what happens around, to work with you to say, you need power connection, we will talk to Kenya Power for you. Because it's not easy for a lot of people to do that. You need water, we will talk to the water service providers for you to be able to get this water. You need... Even when you need capital, we have very good relationships with the banks. I think you're aware that Nyeri County is home to some of the biggest SACCOs, cooperatives. So there's all these SACCOs that are also able to lend you to the tune of a couple of 100 millions to set up business in Nyeri.
So there are very many opportunities for investors coming in, and the county government is willing to give some incentives and walk the talk and walk the journey.
We are willing. We have officers that actually do that. Another thing that is useful for me to mention here, and sometimes when we think of attracting investors, we think of those very big ones with hundreds of millions of shillings to come and set up, probably the international ones. We also have in mind, those are good and they create a lot of jobs, but they are not that many. So we are looking at somebody like you to say, look, you can, somebody like you.
Someone like Siti Muga.
Yes, you can set up a holiday home in Nyeri that you can run as an Airbnb. And, this is what you need to do. This is the license that you need to have. This is the services that we are willing to provide you.
Siti, the lady has read you.
It's done.
Because this is what Siti has actually been talking about.
You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you.
26 minutes to 8. Let's take this quick break. Take a look at the traffic and weather. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Our guest this morning, Diana Kendi. She is the Trade CEC for Nyeri. Trade, tourism, cooperatives, culture. What else?
That's it.
Oh, that's it.
Yes.
Okay. She's also the chairperson of the Trade Caucus for Central Kenya Economic Bloc and the national chairperson of the County Trade CECs Forum. So let's now wear the regional and the national hats. Okay?
Right.
People have been complaining of doing business in counties because each county is looking to raise its own revenue by, taxing for several services. Like you said, it's not taxing, it's basically levying for fees for several services that you're offering.
Yes.
If we just started from the issue of Nyeri County, people who are doing business in Nyeri and also doing business in the neighboring counties, we're talking about Nyandarua, Laikipia, Murang'a, Kirinyaga. How many other levies do they have to pay if they just need to cross over to these counties?
Thank you, Eric, for that question. And this is a question we've been grappling with for a while now. And we have had, indeed, many of those complaints about the cross-border trade issues. There has been a number of licenses that we have required business people to pay. And we came together as counties and said, okay, we need to raise our own source revenue, but we do not need to kill these businesses. And one of the things that kills these businesses is not necessarily even just the charge, the time, the number of licenses, figuring out which license you need to pay for what thing. So the one thing that we've come up with, and it's now in place, is to be able to say, can we have a single permit? So there's no branding permits, cross-border permits, parking permits, because all of this were different permits. So to simplify the permit so that you can have one permit if you're moving across counties, you just have one permit that you pay at the county of origin.
Okay.
So this is what we are working at. We know it has been a problem and we are working on it now. So simplifying the licensing the license itself, then rationalizing the costs. To ask ourselves, you see a lot of trucks these days are not branded.
Yep.
It's because it's so expensive. If you had to go to every county, even if you pass there once a year, you need to pay them 20,000 for your branded vehicle to go
just
by.
cross over
That's
the
why
county.
they no longer brand their vehicles, which is detrimental to the businesses, because for you to be able to sell,
You need to have
be able to
visibility.
have visibility.
Yep.
So then the question is, then if I could just interject, then why make it so expensive at the county level to having the initial knowledge that it is difficult for businesses to operate with such large fees that are being asked of them. And we know that then now it's clear that the reason why their businesses are suffering is because they cannot afford it. What happens then to making a decision to say, okay, guys, can we tweak this a little bit to make it more affordable for businesses to operate?
We have already done that. We have already done that. All I'm saying is to acknowledge what businesses have been saying in the past, to say, look, this thing is not working for us. And one of the things that I see a lot of people like the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, they are big at lobbying. And the Constitution does provide for citizen and stakeholder engagement whenever all of those things are being done. I don't know whether it is that the citizen does not have sufficient information to know that they need to participate in these conversations. Because it is not one day that Nyeri County or Laikipia County wake up and say, guys, you're going to pay 20,000 shillings for a branded truck passing through here. There is a whole process you need to go through. And this process is what then creates the finance bill, the county finance bill. Then it has to go through some public participation and go to the county assembly, and then it is passed. So it's not just one morning that this is decided. The challenge has been a lot of the business people, a lot of the stakeholders do not participate in these forums. And probably we have the duty as government to tell them, look, the Constitution, this is a right you have under the Constitution of Kenya. And in fact, right now, you can go to court if anything is done without public participation and stop it. So one of the things that we've been trying to do, like I'll give you an example, in Nyeri County, especially during COVID time and as we were coming out of COVID, the bar owners said, look, you've been charging us this rate, but we can no longer afford.
Yeah.
And we had a forum with them and they said, look, if you charge us this amount, we're going to pay. Do you know what that did? There was a lot of compliance. We didn't need to chase them around, and it worked for them.
And worked for you as well.
And it worked for us. So these are the kind of models that we are looking at. But all I would like to say is, yes, as counties, there's been a problem. We have worked at resolving this problem.
But you see,
and some
Diana,
of them are already resolved.
This is frustrating, okay? Because this is not a new conversation. This is a conversation that started even with the local authorities. It has moved into the counties. It's been there throughout the 2 terms of devolution. Like you're saying, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and others have been lobbying and saying, how can we have single permits? How can we have this harmonized fee and levies? You keep talking about, oh yeah, we have met, we have discussed, it's work in progress. How long shall this work be in progress?
Actually,
How
it
many-
is in place, Eric.
Really?
It is in place.
Across
Check-
the country?
Not all counties have done it, but it is in place. I can say like for Nakuru, for Nyeri, for Laikipia, it is in place.
So what will it take to get it across the country? So that you know, if I have an industry in Nairobi and I'm supplying my goods across the country, this is how I shall operate. If I move, maybe I'll be paying per economic block, or I'll be paying once from the source, which is Nairobi, where my factory is. What shall it take for one to know that this is all I need?
The modality, we started, like you said, we started with the conversations. And there are certain counties that saw this right off the bat. They're like, yeah, this makes sense. Let's do this. But remember, counties are also independent governments.
Right.
There is indeed a committee, which I am privileged to have sat in, where we were trying to look at these issues, and it was being led by the CS for Trade, Madam Betty Maina. We gave a proposal to say, if we do this, this is the revenue that we are going to forego. So for this reason, is it possible to probably, the same way KRA collects certain other taxes and then the money is equitably shared to the counties through the Equitable Fund, can KRA or another person collect this, everything, they be charged with this responsibility, and then this money is sort of remitted to the counties. So that conversation is there. I know it is frustrating for businesses when it has not taken place across the counties uniformly. But also, Eric, we need to appreciate that devolution is fairly new in this country.
Yep.
If I remember when we started in devolution in 2013, there were a lot of structures not in place. Those days you could spend money at source. So basically you could go and get money from the quarries, and then it is banked, and then you go and request, get some money from a cash office. And now you cannot do that. It is not proper accounting practice to do that. So now the money has to go to, there has to be just one account. There is IFMIS. You have to procure through IFMIS. It's no longer an LPO that is written to you by an officer and given to you. And then you come with a delivery note and you're paid. So all I'm trying to say with all of this is that we've come a long way.
No,
We are
I'm
not
buying
moving as
that.
fast as we would like.
I
but
hear
we've
you.
come a long
I'm
way.
just not buying it, and I'll tell you why. So devolution, yes, is fairly new. The concept of government is not new.
It isn't.
It is just a new level of government.
Yes.
The people who are in charge of all these governments are people who have experience with national government. If you look at all the counties, look at the governors. They have worked at senior level in government. All of them. All. Whether you're a member of parliament, or whether you have been a minister, whether you've been a PS, whether you've been a head of public service, whether you've been an assistant minister, all these guys who are His Excellency Governor, this and the other, most of them, well, apart from your governor, have been senior in government. Even your governor has been a senior working for government, right? So they all understand government. They all understand what buttons need to be pressed. I just sit back and I ask myself, what are we having a conversation over? The trade CS has been the head of Kenya Association of Manufacturers that is leading this conversation. So businesses have a spokesperson at ministry level. Businesses have spokesperson at the county level. Governors have... What is this? I mean, yeah, you're doing a bit, but that's not enough.
Can I muddy the waters a little more?
Please.
Okay. Would you say that our county assemblies are legislation-making assemblies?
Yeah, they do make legislation. Yeah.
Do they have the competence and the ability to make legislations? There's a reason why I ask. You see, a lot of what we discuss in terms of on-source revenue collections, they have to do with the legislation. You need to have the right sort of laws to be able to support some of these activities. I remember at the beginning of devolution, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and the Commission on Revenue Allocation actually set about trying to get councils, long before we started, getting confused with all these things, to actually understand the importance of this, so that when it comes to actually trying to raise revenue, trying to encourage business people, you have a mechanism, a legal structure that enables them to do so. I ask because if you have the intentions, but you do not have the legal structure to support it, it doesn't matter how hard you work, my view, you will not be able to do the very things that we're saying ought to be done.
Agreed. I agree with you, and it's good that we are on this point, especially now going to the election. Because we have, for example, at county level, we have the members of county assembly that are elected by the people.
Yep.
Right? And they're elected by the people to represent the interests of the people in their areas. Yeah? So then, it follows, or yes, it does follow that it is the MCAs to be able to look at the proposed bills and see if they are representative of the aspirations of the people that they represent in the House.
Yep.
Now, when we go to the question of competency, it takes me to the conversation of the duty of the citizen in the governance of any country. As we are going to vote this August, what question are you, Eric, asking yourself when it comes to who you will vote for your MCA, for your MP, for your governor, for your president? Because remember, the county assembly is independent of the county executive. Yeah. So there has been a lot of effort in sort of I don't want to use the word educating, like sensitizing the members of county assembly on legislation.
Is it enough though?
I think we could do more because we are still not where we want to be. But again, for me, having started out in devolution back then, the quality of leaders, I say, in county assemblies is so much better. Now, if you ask me...
So the second term MCAs are better than the first term MCAs?
I feel that I could say yes to that question, but also probably because they know what it is about.
Okay.
Remember, when devolution came about, many of us didn't know what it meant.
So there was so are we saying that essentially there was a learn on the job kind of experience?
It is exactly what it was.
Okay. Now, I think a lot of times, and I think a lot more recently, we've seen this poll to say, okay, citizens and how you elect, the responsibility of electing somebody then rests on your shoulder, somebody who's actually going to get the job done. But I think we run the risk of taking away the responsibility from the shoulders of those who've been put in those positions at the time. Election or notwithstanding, that here is an opportunity that you have to actually just do your job, which brings me then to my question of this own source revenue, looking for other avenues through which a county, a certain jurisdiction, then will be able to make money. Because in the absence of such, we get back to the situation whereby the levies and the licenses and the taxes on the people of the particular county then get heavier and heavier. Because unfortunately, there's just not enough in terms of creativity to actually get something done. So, election notwithstanding, can we say without a sliver of doubt that there are mechanisms in place, the legislation that CT may have mentioned, or that there are ideas in place to widen the bowl or to widen this sea of opportunity when it comes to what counties, and I'm speaking across board now, that what counties will be able to do to guarantee revenue and to make sure that everybody is playing in this pool. Can we say that those things exist? If you ask me, it doesn't fall on the shoulders of the citizens when it comes to then electing who their MCA will be. So can we say that, yes, there's creativity in thinking, there's creativity in putting some of these things together, because we're dealing in a quasi-federal system here, where you have the national government and then you have the county government then who is responsible for making sure that its residents and its citizens are then operating within a profitable space. So is there enough? Is there thinking towards more? Elections notwithstanding.
Yes, there is thinking towards more. And what we are trying to do now is to ask ourselves, as you're saying, how do we, first of all, broaden the base?
All right.
Yeah. And that's why we are having these conversations with stakeholders to say, okay, what is a reasonable charge? How do we collect? What challenges are you having? So these are conversations that are being had, and these are things that we have found to be working. But more so, I like the model that, for example, this is of course being done by the Kenya Forest Service, of Karura Forest. If you think about it, a few years ago, Karura has always been there, but there was nothing much happening at Karura. It was a forest. Now, what have they done? They got creative. Now all of us can go to Karura Forest and exercise, and we pay a fee, right?
Yep.
Right now, the millions, I had a conversation with some of the officers there. They generate millions of shillings from the forest, a resource that was always there.
It's always been there.
It's always been there. So it's the same kind of model we are looking at as counties to say, especially with tourism sites, for example. We have in Nyeri, we have where it is the home of, you could argue it is the home of the Mau Mau, because the Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi is from Nyeri. We have done a small tourist site. So now that we have developed this site, are we able to take it to a level that we are able to charge, and you're happy to pay to be able to make money from something that we already have?
Calls on creativity.
Calls on creativity. And this is what we have been doing to try and keep the creativity up, to be able to have more channels of revenue generation as opposed to relying to the traditional cess, market entry fee, and so on. So it is a challenge that we've taken up seriously. And personally, I think the county government of Nyeri, especially working with the MCAs in Nyeri, I don't know, it has probably to do with our education levels. We have a very good house So they really work very well with us towards.
Speaking of
meetings.
consultative meetings, a friend of mine tells me that the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and the Council of Governors and Trade CECs are meeting in Naivasha to discuss these matters I've been talking about today.
That's right. Yeah, they're meeting today in Naivasha about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Diana, you've done quite a bit in terms of working in counties, understanding devolution, understanding the challenges of devolution. As a young woman working for devolution, well, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to hear of your rise in this and to also get to pick your brain on everything else that's working. However, there's a blot, and I think it's important that we address it. Young woman working in county government and the matters that come with such office, especially in the public eye. When the former governor of Nyeri, Dr. Wahome Gakuru, died, and then the news was coming out, in the media, there was mention of Diana Kendi as somebody who had a relationship with the late governor, and it was a blot on your name. How do you address that? Is it true? Is it not true? Does it affect how you've been working?
Thank you, Eric, for asking me that question. And you are actually the first journalist to even ask for my comment on the issue. It was just one day we went to bed on a Monday and woke up and the governor had passed on. Actually, there was a story that was just on Facebook. And, we thought it's just one of those, we were coming out of the election. So there was a lot of mud, just trying to muddy your competitor, right? And we had thought it's just one of those political things. And I remember His Excellency Governor Gakuru at the time had called me and said, I was in Mombasa, and he says, when you return, I want you to meet this youth group to talk about a certain talent development program. And I said, sir, have you seen the story going around? He says, I don't want to, to distract myself with petty politically, motivated conversations. Come the next day, 9 a.m., the governor passes on. And you can imagine the shock we were all in because he passed on in a road accident.
Yeah.
And now this is the story. And I remember I was going to the airport and you were sitting somewhere and you see people just looking at you and and the shocking thing for my family and close friends was none of these things is true. I saw the story talking about me having a child with the governor. I don't even have a child. I have never even had a child, right? Talking about, I guess, me being related to a former First Lady. She's somebody I have never had the opportunity to even personally engage with, So it is very unfortunate that this came up. Initially, of course, as the governor had seen it, it was meant to be just something probably to tarnish his name with his... I imagine it was targeted at him. But now that he had died, and those kind of salacious stories, I guess, sell. Unfortunately, even some reputable media houses carried this story. I was still working in the government. We were now in the process of planning a state funeral. So every day we had the journalists there with us. But no journalist, Eric, came up to me and said, look, there's this story. What do you have to say to it?
So if I was to ask you a direct question as we conclude the conversation, it's already 8 a.m. Did you or did you not have an affair with the late Dr. Wahome Gakuru?
I did not. He was my boss.
That's enough. That's enough for you to put. Thank you very much, Diana, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for all the good work that you've been doing for the county of Nyeri and for the neighboring counties and for the country.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.